introduced. My name is Scotch McClure. I'm a CEO with over 20 years of experience. Maxwell Biosciences is backed by over $40 million in government-sponsored research grants and awards and $13 million in venture stage investment. We have a long list of pedigreed investors. More information upon CDA and talking with us later. Good example is David Shaw, one of the former partners at Venrock, Alex Dreyfus, who funded the Dreyfus Building, and Thomas Boone Pickens from the famous oil family in Texas, founder of the Astrotech Corporation. A lot of acknowledgments here: University of Texas, Stanford, NYU, and the Department of Defense. DARPA called this a synthetic immune system. So it's very well certified and confirmed. We have scientific consensus that this actually does work in mammals. So infectious disease today is viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Pandemics and chronic disease often combine all three, and there's just not very good tools for any of them, including antibiotic resistance for antibiotics. And vaccines, as we know, the variants evolve much faster than the vaccine does. Doctor says there's nothing that we can do. We've seen this over and over again. I saw that with my daughter. I saw it with my father. Both were in the ICU at the same time in different hospitals. I had to quit my job and work really hard to see if I could save their lives. I was successful, and that amount of love and grief motivated me to extreme action. I ended up buying the patent on a compound that was invented by a Stanford bioengineer that mimics the key immune molecule of the human immune system that was originally funded by the DARPA Synthetic Immune System program. And you can see here what we've developed over the past 8 years. No adverse effect on the gut microbiome, effective against biofilms, viruses, bacteria, all escape pathogens, which are all the nasty ones, all of the bad ones that are resistant to antibiotics, and fungi. This is not an antibiotic. It's not an antiviral, and it's not an antifungal. It is a mimic of your own human immune system peptide. So NIH, Fauci's team, when he was still there, funded a study that showed that we were able to completely prevent COVID in the gold standard animal model, Syrian hamsters. You can see that the untreated ones got very sick and the treated ones got better. And not only that, but we were able to prevent the disease state itself. We're also effective against Ebola, and you can see out here at the highest dose, 100 micrograms per milliliter, which is 1,000,000 parts, right? It's a millionth of a dose. That is a tiny, it's 100 millionths, right? So that's still a very tiny dose, but at the highest dose, we were able to completely prevent replication. Even at 20 micrograms per milliliter, we were able to, this would likely save someone's life. This is the only compound in existence that is safe and also pan-coronavirus. This is at 1,000,000,000th parts. And it's also pan-influenza, pan-herpes, pan-hepatitis, and I also mentioned the Ebola, but also Zika, chikungunya, rhinovirus, respiratory RSV, which we've heard a lot in children lately. This is incredible. It is truly a mimic of the human immune system. So we know how viruses evolve and spread, and these are the most dangerous ones. We're effective against all of those. We know that antibiotic resistance pollution is everywhere. It's in our crops, it's in our food, it's in our groundwater, it's everywhere. This will eventually wipe out our species if we don't get rid of antibiotics completely. We have to get rid of antibiotics, and we have a compound that can replace all antibiotics, a $45 billion market opportunity. The current pandemic is fungal, according to Johns Hopkins. So black fungus is what actually kills you with COVID, not the virus. So the virus weakens your immune system, and this black mucor fungus comes in and kills you. So what would it take to replace the bulk of antibiotics in humans and livestock? A new mechanism of action has to be effective against all tested bacteria, safe, non-toxic, massively scalable, and less expensive to manufacture by at least 1/2, and no cold chain required. We have all of those things in one compound, MXB 22510, and we have lots of other compounds that are better at certain things. We own all of our patent, which is absolutely key for making this very affordable to be able to compete with generic antibiotic. In addition, we also have the FDA Qualified Infectious Disease Product Program under the GAIN Act, which is a congressional act that gives us 12 years of monopoly at $6 billion per year. So that's a $72 billion conservative revenue opportunity. We have the former head of R&D for Shire Pharmaceuticals, and he brought his team with him from Shire. So you'd be taking a bet on Shire's R&D team that was responsible for over $30 billion in revenue and over 100 drugs brought to market successfully through the FDA. This team right here has a 100% success rate through the FDA. They have never had a failure. We're going up against our strategic lead indication. It's a beachhead indication for which there are 28,000 deaths per year, and this is chronic sinusitis. So the infection comes up through the sinuses, very, very painful. You can see that here, the gathering of the fluids and such, and then this is what the FDA looks for. This is the primary endpoint, and then does the patient feel better? So that's what we have to do right there, that CT scan. This is the way the pathogens enter through the sinuses, cause all kinds of problems in the brain, all of these other indications. We also come up through the nose, through this nasal spray, take out these infections and knock out the inflammation and the pain. And 30% of that compound gets up into the brain very safely and helps the patient in our studies. So total TAM here, not just in chronic sinusitis, but all antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, and veterinary infections. We have 3 partnerships with publicly traded pharmaceutical companies within the livestock industry, $200 billion in 5 years. This is our pipeline report here: chronic sinusitis, post-viral syndrome, going after long COVID, infectious dementia, Epstein-Barr, brain fungal infections. We just brought on Major General Barb Holcomb to head up our biodefense unit, which is called Project Anubis, working with the DoD. This is where our clinical safety and clinical efficacy milestones are going to be next year, right here. So your payoff is right around the corner, and it's headed up by this team here. It came over from Shire, 100% FDA success rate. So this is our exit opportunity right here, just a couple of years out, not like a usual biotech opportunity where you're going to have 7 to 9 years. This is 2 years out. We're raising for our Series A right now. The first part of that tranche is $20 million on a convertible note, which we're filling really quickly. So as soon as we fill that $20 million note, there is a $30 million commitment that will immediately kick in. So that'll be $50 million covered out of this $95 million raise. We'll only need to raise just a little bit more. We're in London right now. We just came in from Dubai. We talked with the Saudis, with the United Arab Emirates, and we're talking with some extremely high net worth individuals and family.